Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Down Low with Joel Lowe and Mike Durezzo. I'm Mike Durezzo, and as always, with my buddy Joel. Joel, say hello.
Hello, hello, welcome, welcome.
All right. So today we're going to talk about coming back from the Great Resignation. We're hoping this is turning a corner, and everybody's finding jobs and settling in and getting ready to make this place a great place to live again and work and everything else. And I'm hiring. Joel's hiring. All these companies are hiring. Um, Before we got into the Great Resignation, even before in cybersecurity, there was a deficit of 1.7 million jobs, um, and there was only 300,000 college students in school to learn about cybersecurity. And obviously, those
Yeah,
numbers have increased and changed. But they're still bad. And then the Great Resignation happened, and everybody said, "You know what? This isn't worth it." And I left, and they left, and we all left, and we went and we in search of inner peace and desire of finding a place we want to live. But I think we're coming back. So, Joel, what are your thoughts on this? Where are you at?
so we were talking in the green room. I think what's interesting to me is the fact of I see companies now hiring people just to have headcount
Hmm.
versus hiring the right quality of people. And
Right,
I think that's going to be the huge issue right now, right? You got to have so many people to run your business, right? And everybody knows what that number is, and that's in fast food to cybersecurity to IT to whatever it is, right?
right,
Um, so you then rush out here because you're in a panic, and you hire people who don't fit the bill, right? For what you believe in, for your culture, for whatever it is. And now your customers suffer for that,
right,
right? Your product is no longer represented the way that it's supposed to.
right,
And we gave examples of like I walked into a fast food restaurant and somebody was on their phone
right,
and they didn't even acknowledge me until they finished their conversation on their phone,
right.
or been in the drive-through and it's like, uh, "What's your order?" And I'm like, "Well, hello," right?
Yeah,
Like it's just okay, right?
yeah,
Um, and you see that also too, even in today's market, right? So one of the things as a manager, one of the things that you're fighting with is how do I hire the right person, right? And and run up against the timeline of the budget, right?
right,
So what I mean by that, for those that don't know, is your CFO will come out with a budget and say, okay, you're asking for this certain head count. They say, okay, you've been approved for this head count. This money is there for you. You now start interviewing and working with partners to find you the right talent. But
right,
let's say that then you move into and you're still looking for the right person. There's a lot of reasons why, and we'll talk more about that later on in this podcast. And you haven't found them yet, and then you go into the second quarter, you didn't have a great first quarter, and they freeze hiring, right? So now that body that you asked for because you needed, right? Now they're saying, well, hold, we're gonna wait and see how the second quarter goes, right?
right,
So what you see a lot of people do is rush to hire somebody before they freeze headcount so you can have that number. But
right.
then what happens is you hire the wrong person, and now it's a nightmare managing them, right?
Yeah,
It's a nightmare because they
yeah.
don't fit the group. You really didn't do your due diligence because you were trying to get them in, right? Hey, they breathe, they meet two, they
They
check two
fog a
boxes,
mirror.
right?
Right, 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 right.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
bring them in, right? And they
yeah,
hit the price mark where we wanted to, and then you get them in there, and you're spending all your time and effort, right, managing somebody or training somebody who never should have been hired, to
right.
be honest, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And the trouble is that you're right. We do get pressure from above. Like if you don't fill these things, they're gonna go away, right? So you
Right,
can't put money into a budget and not use it because next year you won't get it, right? And
right,
it's kind of it's a weird thing, and what's really funny is towards the end of some fiscal years you'll see some state and local and federal governments just start spending money because they have to use that money or they won't get the same dollar amount next year. and
right.
and things always are going to get more and more expensive, right? Stuff doesn't get cheaper. It just changes what you buy and so on and so forth. But so if you don't spend the money, you lose it. You're absolutely right. You start getting pressure, and then to your point, hey, we're not doing as good as we thought we were. We're going to need to trim back, and
Right.
well, you haven't filled that position, so we're going to put a hold on that. And you know, right or wrong, it is what it is, right? I mean, I worked
Right.
at a company where they let go all of their remote employees. This pre-pandemic, they let go all their remote employees, and like some of the people they let go were like, that was the only person. She was the only one that knew anything about the system. Why'd you let her go? Well, we just made a sweeping. We had to make a decision, and that decision, no matter how bad it was the decision we came with. And you're like, that was a pretty terrible decision.
That was terrible.
Can we hire them
Terrible.
back? Like, well, we have a no hire back for 2 months. And you're like, okay. So we're going to bring them on as a contractor at twice what
Contractor.
they were making because you upturned their life without noticing. And you really like, we need to fix this. So anyways,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it's a hard one. The other thing is, just not finding what we're looking for, right? There are some people get comfortable, right?
Hmm.
And they don't want to leave, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's some
Right.
people who are like, I want to find one company I want to work for, just like my father and my grandfather and my mother and my
Right.
grandmother worked for, and that's all I want to work for is one company. And you're like, if you can find that one company and they treat you well and everything, good for you.
Right.
I'm not going to bag on that at all. But
No.
I'm having a challenge finding the sweet spot, right? I found people who are way overqualified, and I'm like, and I had to be honest with one woman. I told her, I was like, number one, you are way overqualified for this job, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean you are an
Right.
absolute rock star. And she was older than I was. She was much more educated. She was doctoral candidate, had a lot of great experience and everything else. And she was shocked. And she still wanted to work for us. I've got a great boss, and we have a great team and a great program here. And she still wanted to work for us. And I was like, I got to be honest with you. I'm like, you're an absolute rock star, but like don't sell yourself short. And she was asking for money down here, and I'm like, you're probably in the 30-40 grand higher range. And she's like, what? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. I just, like, she was a candidate for me. I started sending her jobs, right? I was like, you should look at these jobs. And she was in the Midwest, and I said, here's some jobs that I've turned down because I wasn't nearby and they wanted somebody to come in, once or twice a week, or,
Right.
remote but close and everything else. I was like, here's some rock star jobs for you. Um, it's people are just, and that makes it even harder because, recruiters are looking for the best of the best to give you because that's
Hmm.
what they want to be known for. And
Right.
so, I get positions, I'm looking for a project manager, and I get people who are, man, this person's my replacement. Like, I'd love to hire this person just to replace me someday.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, man, she's awesome. Don't you have anything that you can put? Like, well, we want to make sure we give you the best. And I'm like, I appreciate that, but this
Right.
person's 75,000 more than I'm willing to pay
Right.
for what I'm expecting, and they are going to be so bored.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, anyways, that's my thought. What are some of the things that you've had? You talked about
I,
salaries are all
I
over the
mean,
place.
so yeah, so salaries are ridiculous at this point, and I think people can't even justify their numbers,
Hmm.
right? So you can talk to somebody and they're like, "Yeah, I want this certain number, and I want a Bentley, right? I don't want to pay taxes, right? There's a lot of things I want. I want to hit the lotto, right? But I'm not gonna get that for the most part. And my thing is, I need to be able to justify those
Right,
numbers. So right,
right,
so anytime I'm interviewing, I can always stand behind the number I get, right?
right,
And this is why. Here's what you're getting, right? I usually tell people all the time, you're not only getting 15 years of experience, but you're getting somebody that's going to hit the ground running, right?
right,
So my runway for picking up and putting down what it is and your return on your investment is very short. And that's what
right,
you're paying for, right? You're paying for somebody who immediately will come in and start turning a profit for what you're paying, right?
right,
But I've talked to people and they have no idea why they got the number. No, I just that's what my friend that's what they're making. Or had a colleague tell me that's what it is, or I saw it on Glassdoor or something. And you're like, but what was their qualifications? Where were they
Right.
living? Right?
Right.
They were in San Francisco, right? Like we're not in
Right.
San Francisco.
We're not in San Francisco.
I can't.
Right.
Like, well, that's New York prices. You don't live in New York, right?
Right.
You stay in
We're
South
not
Carolina.
based
What
in
are
New
we?
York. You don't live in New
Right,
York.
right. So
Right.
it's just one of those things where you can't just pull a number down and say, "Hey, this is what I want,"
Right.
because of whatever reason. You have to justify it,
Right.
right? And my thing too, I think at this point we need to start thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
right? As hiring people, be less on, especially if it's a entry position or even mid position, right? Low mid, I would say. If you can find somebody with the right, not qualifications, but the right untangibles, the tangibles, the
The soft
good
skills.
ethic, the soft skills, right? Smart, hungry to learn, just a good person you would enjoy being with, can pick things up real fast.
Right.
Hire them, right?
Right.
You're gonna have to train somebody no matter what,
Right.
right? And I would tell them, hey, I'm gonna hire you, but it's gonna be on this basis here. You have 3 months to do X, Y, and Z, right? And I'm gonna help you out, but I'm gonna need you to push it. And then what happens is if you do this in this 3 months, we will then increase your salary, right? To this. So you're not losing money. Start them off, $20,000, $30,000 less. But give them the incentive of if you do these things, right, and I'm gonna work with you, right, you'll get an increase in
Right.
90 days, and this will be your salary, right?
Right.
So what that shows to you, that makes them hungry, right? You can then show them what you need and make sure they're learning it, right? And then once they do, you then reward them for it. They're even more happier, right? But my thing is now you hired somebody that fits your program, that's outside the box and brings something that's different, right? So they may have been in marketing, they may have been in IT versus cyber, they may have been in legal, procurement, who knows? They're in a different
Right.
department in their life and decide they want to do something different. I mean, I've even
Right.
had somebody that was like a chemical engineer, right? And they've came and worked for us because they want to do something different.
Right.
And you're now bringing that expertise and that viewpoint of something different to your group. So what did you just do? You diversified your team, right?
Well,
Now you have a go ahead.
and I'd like to think that you created loyalty, right?
Right, right,
I my retainment of my team members and everything else is so great because, you know, I care. I generally care about people and what they do and and you've heard me say this before. Hey, this is probably not your last job. It would be great if it was, but this is probably not your last job. What do you want
right.
your next job to be and how can I help you get there? Right?
Correct.
And because we can't be selfish anymore, right? We can't just be like, I've got to fill this role and you're going to sit in this role until I no longer need you in this role. Right? You
Right,
can't be like that anymore. You have to move people on, if only because you're not going to move on unless there are people to fill the spots beneath you and
right,
help you move on. Right? We all want to we all want to grow. We all want to move on. We all want that Bentley. I don't, but we want something of
nah,
that aptitude. We want to
right,
improve.
right,
Sometimes it's people want to manage people. Sometimes it's people want to be architects or expand their role, but maybe not manage people. And so how do you get there? And I ask candidates that in their job interview. Like, and it's, is it one of those like outside the box questions? Yeah, but I genuinely care, right?
right.
Like I don't just throw the question out there and just, you only click and read
I,
emails while
I
you're
mean, I've
responding.
had I do these all the time when
Yeah.
I first hire somebody. I say, what do you see yourself in the next, 2 to 3 years,
Right.
5 years? Like, where do you want to end up being? And
Right.
I've had some people literally be like, I want your job. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Well, let's map that out for you, right?
Right.
Here's where you are. Here's what you need to know,
Yeah.
right? And then my thing is then letting them see behind the curtain, right?
Right.
From my eyes reference, right? Um, so I'll bring
Yeah.
them into a budget meeting, right?
Right.
And let them see how boring, right? But also how important those meetings are, right?
Right.
When you're going, and don't get me wrong, I love numbers, so I've
Yeah.
always enjoyed budget meetings. But to some people, they're the worst things ever, right?
Yeah.
Where we're literally line by line
They're
going
pretty
over, hey,
terrible.
yeah, or say, hey, you know what? I want you to manage these two people, soft manage for this
Right.
project. And
Right.
I want you to see how it is managing people, because you say you want to be a manager. Well, I'm managing now 25 people. So now here's two. Try two. And then they'll
Right.
come back and be like, no, I just want to stay technical.
Yeah. Mark Twain, hell is other people. If you get nothing out of this, ladies and gentlemen out there, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, same person, hell is other people, right? And yeah, some people want to be managers, and you're like, why do you want to be a manager? Like, let's be absolutely clear, because the reasons you may want to be a manager may not be the reasons that managers are you're required to be a manager, right? Like,
Right.
some people are like, well, I want to make more money. You're like, you don't need to manage people to make more money,
Nope.
right? You
Nope.
can be a
You do
subject
not.
matter expert and make bank,
Right.
especially in technology.
Yes.
You know, hey,
I,
I want to manage people because it's fun, and you're like, I you're probably a psychopath. Maybe I don't want you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
right. Like,
But
what part of that is fun, right? So
right,
so
right,
if you say I like training people, I like mentoring people, yeah, that's fun, right?
right,
And you understand there's a lot of work that goes in that. There's a lot of things that happen with managing a good manager,
right.
that you're gonna spend money, right? Like I've
Yeah,
literally went out and bought, refreshments or donuts
yeah.
or
Out of
a
my own
snack
pocket.
closet out of my own pocket, right? So all the things of like I want to make more money, where you spend more money, right?
Right,
Because again, if my team is happy,
right,
I'm happy, right?
right.
If,
Yeah.
if they're rock
One less thing
stars,
to worry
I'm a
about.
rock star. It
Yeah,
is. It is.
yeah,
So if it's me buying some Red Bull and some Oreo cookies
yeah,
to make everybody do what they do,
yeah.
I'm a Red Bull and Oreo cookie Mountain Dew kind of guy,
Right.
right? I will,
Is that why
it does
most
not
of our
matter.
employees are type 2 diabetic?
It
And
is.
jittery all the time.
It is. That is what they live off of, just so everybody knows, right? In the
Right.
cyber IT world,
You're
if
not
you want
leaving
to,
for lunch. Your lunch is Red Bull and Oreo cookies. No, that's not
that is
true.
it.
Joel has people come to work for him at multiple jobs. They follow him from job to job.
Right,
So yeah, it's rewarding in and of itself, right? Sometimes making the extra money is, yeah, that's nice and everything. Money's not
right,
everything, right? It really isn't. You could pay me $1 million a year, and
right.
if all I'm doing is answering the phone when it rings and tapping a button every 30 minutes, I'll quit in a week, right? Like,
Yeah,
humans need to be challenged, and otherwise you just suffer. You degrade and you suffer. So yeah,
I think my hat goes off to you on being so upfront and honest, right? I love that, and I think the return from that shows in the products that you get or the people that come to you. Telling
yeah,
somebody when you interview them, and I've done that before, like, hey, you're a rock star, right?
yeah,
Hey, and this job would bore you, right?
yeah,
Um, but I'm gonna keep you close because hey, if I find something or see something, I definitely want you on my team, or I definitely want to help you find something else.
right,
That's how this community should be. And I
yeah,
think all communities should be this way when it comes to their job. But I know on the cyber side, it's huge like that. And I think it's because we're so young,
yeah,
right? We really try to help each other. Like
yeah,
I've never had an issue going to another cybersecurity leader and asking the question of like, hey, for this log4j, how did you handle this? Right?
right,
Just as an example. And then be like, well, no, we can't tell you that. Right.
right.
I mean, I figured something out. I'm not gonna tell you that, right?
No,
It just
yeah,
doesn't work that way, right? We're all trying to do our best to not get on the news, right?
and paddle
So,
in the right direction, right? We're
right,
all trying to paddle in the, because if he comes back, or he or she comes back and says, "Well, Joel, Mike, this is how I did it," and you find a better way, you should tell them, like,
right.
"Hey, just FYI, I really appreciate your input and your guidance there. I actually went about and solved it this way because of X, Y, and Z." And they may go,
Hmm.
"Ooh, I didn't think about that.
Let me get back to you,
Let me
right?
think. Can I call you back in about
We're
12
gonna call you
days?"
back.
And you're like, "Yeah,
Sure, yeah.
it is what it is." Yeah, there's
I mean,
a lot of
I even been up for a job against another guy I knew within the cyber community, and just so happened we were talking, and he talked about the job, and I was like, "Oh, me too." I interviewed before him, and then
yeah,
called him and told him, "Here's some of the questions that are coming up," right?
yeah,
And not to me, it wasn't like if something's for me, it's for me, right? No matter
right,
what's gonna happen.
yeah,
So to me, it wasn't one of those things where I need to be like, "I'm not gonna tell him." Right?
right,
No, hey, here, because I would want somebody to do that for me. Like, hey, George,
yeah,
they asked about this specifically. You really want to make sure you know that. Oh,
Yeah.
appreciate that. So I told
Yeah.
him, he ended up getting the job. I'm quite happy for him, right?
Yeah.
And my thing is, that's how I think you should approach all these things when it comes to jobs, right? Uh, Use your resources, use your community, but also think outside the box, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you
Yeah.
hire the right person and not just put a body in there that you're going to end up regretting,
Yeah.
2 weeks, 3 weeks later. Or I even heard something crazy where like people can get people to come in for the interview. They
Right.
couldn't even get them to show up on the Skype, right? And then they're chasing them. They
Yeah.
finally get them on there. They hire them. They don't show up on the first date. It just makes no sense to me. People
Yeah.
are going to show you who they are, right? I'm
Yeah.
not chasing you down to hire you,
Well,
right?
and what's there? There's a saying that says the best someone will ever look is the day they're interviewing for their job, right?
Right.
And you really you don't hope so. You hope that person is genuine and honest and authentic always.
Right.
But they the motivation is to get the job, get as much as they can because your job, your salary increases are never going to be higher in your jumps than going to a new job, right? That doesn't mean you always jump to a new job, but your year over year raises are usually 3 to 5%, merit increases and inflation increases, and they're usually 3 to 5%. So your
Right.
greatest increase in pay is going to be going to a new
When you first
job. So
start.
they're always
Correct.
going to put their first, best step forward and everything else, and respond appropriately and think about things. And yeah, and to your point, you're always going to work with a candidate, right?
Right.
You have your way of doing things at your organization that may be different. Like I had a guy who was a chef. He was like, yeah, every person who graduates from the Culinary Institute, the first thing I do is teach them how to use knives. And you're like, I'm pretty sure they know how to use knives. And he's like, no, they don't. like, like you're
No.
gonna cut things this way, and here's why. And they have to relearn how to cut things. And you're like, huh? I just spent 3 years going to Culinary Institute of America, and now I have to relearn how to use knives. That's an ego check to some
Right.
people, but it is what
Right.
it is. Contract to
Takeaways?
hire. Oh, no, no,
Oh,
no.
good.
I got one more. So contract to hire.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is I get a lot of these. And sometimes they're not even to hire, they're just contract, right?
Right.
So at first I was like, that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? And the reality of it is that, as if you have healthcare or some way to get healthcare and things like that, doing contracts as an employee is actually pretty beneficial, right? You can make more money and it's easier to decide whether or not this is the right job for you, right?
Right.
Because it's a contract. You can probably go through the company you're contracting through, multiple jobs and everything else. As long
Hmm.
as there's not a problem with you, and you can, you work at a contract for 3 months and they offer you the job, you're like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I don't think that's the right position for me. You should really look for
Right.
somebody that has these skills. And oh, thanks.
Right.
You know, and as an employer contracting to hire, it's different. You can test drive an employee and everything else. Just there has to be a finite amount of time before you can't just contract somebody forever. Don't do that.
Right.
Just unless that's what
Right.
they want to do. Don't keep dangling a carrot. It's also the numbers are going to be significantly higher. I had an eye waking experience. We're doing 90-day contracts. Roll to full time employee. The person is not guaranteed the role, but they pretty much have the inside track. Um, and we have to put the roll out for out there anyways. So you're going to be first to interview, first to do everything. But you pay a premium for that recruitment company, and it's 30-40% more because that recruitment company is pulling that resource out of their pool, and
Right.
they're not going to have that for 2-3 years potentially,
Right.
depending on
Right.
how well you do with them and how much they love you. So it's much much more expensive, right? I mean,
Right.
it's 40 grand, 30 grand extra. That's like, whoo, I see
Right.
what you tried to do there, and you're like, no, 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 there's a reason, because in 90 days, you're going to flip that person. They're like, that's all the money I'm going to make. So I need to make my margin in the 90 days. And you're like,
Right.
all right, I get it. And it took me a little bit to get it, Joel. I got to be honest. I
Yeah.
wasn't at
It's
first.
a
I
hard
wasn't like,
lesson. Mm-hmm.
I was like, mama had
No.
ugly kids, not dumb ones. But it's it is new. This is the new world, right? This is
It
the
is.
way it is. So, all right, takeaways.
Don't rush to hire the wrong person. I think we've talked about
Agreed.
that.
Agreed.
Um, if you need to get somebody on the books, then look at contracts for a
Yeah.
second, right? You can do a 3 to 6 month contract while you're still hiring and looking for the right person.
Yeah.
There are people in this world that like doing contracts, right?
Right.
There are also companies that don't mind letting you borrow one of their staff. That's part of what they do, manage
Right.
services to say, hey, we have a guy, he will remotely work for you, from our team. There's a lot of that out there. So
Yeah.
look at your options while you're trying to find the right person. Remember to
I like
think
it.
outside the box.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people looking for a different career path, and you can be able to help them because you're gonna have to train somebody anyway. So
Yeah.
look for those soft skills,
Yeah.
and if you find that right person, hire them.
I feel like the best hires I've had are people that have had other careers. They went
Hmm.
and they got their bachelor's degree in IT or infosec or whatever, and they're changing careers and they're making money here. You can provide them money here, you know, and they're like, I will do whatever it takes to learn this job. Now, granted, they're
Right,
going to move on, right? Like, and bless their hearts, that's what they're going to do. They're going to move on. You're going to teach them skills. You're going to make them better. You're probably going to have them 2, 3 years, and they're going to go, I think I'm good now. I really appreciate, and they'll feel guilty about leaving you and everything. But at the end of the day, that's what we do as managers is we
right,
create talent and we raise talent, hopefully, and we improve talent and solve problems for the company all at the same time.
right.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with you, Joel. Just outside the box, take a look outside, and then you'd mentioned something dealing with recruiters, stress partnership. I don't think we had a chance to really talk about that.
Right.
What? Tell me,
So
talk a little bit about that.
so where you were talking about how the numbers, right? Especially when you're doing a small contract of like, I only want them for 90 days and then I'm going to switch them over, right?
Yeah.
And some of the heartburn of like, they're going to try to get all of their money, the contract company up front, because they're only going to have them for 90 days on their payroll, right?
Right.
So they'll hit you with fees. Me, I always talk to them and talk about the relationship, right? This is not going to be the last person we hire, right?
Hopefully not.
So
Yeah.
so let's don't try to gouge us on this one deal, right?
Hmm.
Work with me, right? And I,
Yeah.
I understand, give a little bit, take a little bit. Let's barter a little bit, figure this out because I'm with the longevity, right? We're
Yeah.
gonna hire a lot more people, a lot of
Yeah.
things that are going on. There's a lot of projects I'm gonna need. I'm gonna need your help, and I'm looking for somebody to partner with me that believes in what I'm doing,
Yeah.
right? So work with me on this one versus killing me right now with this number, right? And I'm always going to remember that. I'm going to always have a taste in my mouth. So my thing is, I want us to both walk away and feel good about this situation, right?
Right.
So, hey, let's adjust. And usually people can understand that and they can justify that to their management, the
Right.
contract companies, when they go back and say, hey, let's drop it down here because,
Yeah.
hey, there's going to be other deals coming and we want to work with them,
Right.
right? And I've already talked to them and this is where we're at. You're good. They're good. You get you a great talent. You can move forward. And now you have a business partner that you can continue to keep going to that understands what you're doing,
Agreed.
and working together. And I've
Yeah.
done that a lot with a lot of my partners, right? Just,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not looking for somebody to come in right now to fix this one problem. I'm looking for somebody to help me fix several problems that I'm going to
Right.
have, several needs that I have coming up. And I think y'all can do that for me.
Right. Right. Yeah. Be transparent. Give feedback. If you are getting
Right.
candidates that are over here and you need them over here, you got to tell them, like, hey, let's talk about, let's take a look at some of these resumes. Okay. I like, without even talking to this person, I like this level. I love what they're doing. They
Right.
may be good for projects that I have in the future. Have you? And I told a recruiter, I was like, this person right here is awesome, but not for me. Have you talked to the chief technology officer? Because he may be looking for this, or she may be
Right.
looking for this person. You got a rock star here, but it's just not for me. Be transparent. Tell
Right.
them why you wouldn't hire them, or give them good feedback, and don't be too harsh.
Right. Right.
They're not sitting in the room with the candidate when the candidate says something and you're like, that just came out of your mouth.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've had some.
I mean, we could have nightmare. Like we can do a
Yeah.
whole episode of just like candidates and what they said, where you've been like, what? I mean, like I had a candidate make the HR person feel uncomfortable
Oof.
before they even got to the room, right? So
Oof.
they HR person went and picked them up, right? Young, just started, got out of college, went to pick up the person to bring them to me, right? And by the time they got to me, I was like, okay, start the conversation. And then somebody came and was like, Joe, can we talk to you for a second? I was like, sure, give me 1 second. And they were like, yeah, he's not going to work. And I was like, why? And they told me why. And I was like,
Yeah.
how? How did
Yeah.
walking from the front of the building to the conference room?
It's
Like,
49 feet.
what did you say?
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
so again, trust people, take them for who they are in the beginning.
You know
Right.
what? That would be a great, like, okay, this was a job interview. Now it's a learning opportunity. Do you have a pen and a paper? Let's go ahead and write some
Right.
notes down.
Right.
Number
Right.
one, don't try to pick up on the HR person on the way to your interview. That's a
Don't,
no-no.
don't,
You want to make sure you
don't.
know who that person is, and that person controls your life when you're here. So that's a no-no.
Hey, the
Yeah,
small talk should just be that. Hey, because
right.
it's usually just,
How about
hey,
that
how's your
weather?
day going? Yeah, my day is
How's your
good,
day
man.
going?
I'm loving this weather. How about you? Oh,
Right.
things are good. We're busy here, and that's usually what you hear. We're quite
Right.
busy here. Glad you made it in. Is anything I can get for you? No.
No.
Water, right?
How about your
Not.
telephone touch? You're
How
like,
about your number and
no.
what time you get off?
Right, right.
No,
No,
no, no.
no.
Where did you
Yeah,
think that would work? Right.
right,
So,
right.
uh,
I,
no.
I don't know
But
what you
we will do a
saw.
podcast. That hey, that might be our next one.
Yeah,
On
nightmares.
interviewing
Nightmares from the
nightmare
cybersecurity world. Yeah, yeah,
nightmares where you're just like, what?
yeah.
Why?
Maybe
Why?
maybe it's you and I in a black and white suit and black and white film, and we just go, imagine this. You're
On
interviewing a candidate, and the HR representative gives you the from the window, and you're wondering why.
what happened?
What happened?
There's a lot of those. Or you interviewing and they just start cussing, and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
What, what are we? What are we doing? Like, don't get me wrong. There's times where certain words will come out, but they shouldn't be in your interview where,
Yeah.
where you're just going over scenarios. Like, no, no. Let's.
No.
There's so many, and I think that'd be a great one. We'll pin that
All right.
one. Right. So
Maybe that's next week's episode. We'll
you're right.
we'll
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 pin
pen,
that one. All right.
pen that in for next week. All right.
Right.
So Joel, any closing thoughts for you?
You know what I always say, man. Knowing's half the battle. Once you know, then you can apply, right? So hopefully,
Right.
just these little nuggets helped you out a little bit. Again, just getting a little bit smarter and wiser each day.
Right.
So,
Right.
what about you,
And
Mike?
from a candidate perspective, just hopefully this gave you an insight into what people like Joel and I are looking at and dealing with today. And please be patient. We're really sorry. We want to get to everybody. Recruiters. We deal with a lot of recruiters. Recruiters deal with a lot of candidates, and there's a lot of gaps sometimes in getting and receiving feedback from people.
Right,
So maybe there's a second interview I'm not even attending. Maybe it's my team lead or somebody like that who's interviewing the person, or there may be some gaps in getting you feedback. Please don't be disheartened. Right,
right.
you're gonna put in a lot of resumes, you're gonna put in a lot of interviews, you're gonna talk to a lot of people.
Yes,
So just don't lose patience, hope, and everything. But also don't just rely on one line that you cast out there. Get out and
right,
network and talk to people. And you know if you're talking to recruiters, understand that they're making their money for themselves off of the
right.
company, not for you.
Correct.
That isn't to say that you're not an important piece of it, but you're not the only piece of it. So give them a little bit of slack and help them understand. I've certainly had conversations with recruiters where it's like, that's not my job, but that's not the job for me. But have you talked to so and so? And they're like,
Right.
no. And I'm like, well, let me do a warm or soft introduction for you on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. And just that little bit of help and everything else. When I was looking for a job, I found 5 other people jobs, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
why not help other people, right? Why not find
Correct.
the better candidate? And people remember those kinds of things, right? And I'm not saying do it selfishly just to get the payback later on, but
Right.
just pay it into the universe, right? Not just pay it forward, pay it into the universe.
Exactly.
And just remember
Exactly.
that. So no, Joel, once again, great tips. I liked a lot of what you were saying and sharing with everybody today. And thanks so much. Hey, everybody, if you like the content, please hit the like button. It lets us know that we're going down the right path. Hit the subscribe button. We try to do one of these a week.
Right.
And editing is always a challenge. So I try to get them out. As Joel is going to start helping me edit.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna help
maybe these
out.
will get out better. But we do these Monday mornings, so hopefully they get out by Thursday.
Right. Right.
But if you have any suggestions or comments, please let us know. We want to get better. We want to do better. We want to help people. That's why we do this. We don't make any real money off of this. I mean, these $10,000 checks, they just sit here, right? I don't cash them.
We don't
Joel, you
cash
don't
them.
cash them. I think you collect them,
Nah,
right? Yeah. I
I
mean,
collect them. That's it.
right,
Yeah.
right. So we
That's
don't
it,
we don't
man.
need the money. I'm gonna go swim in my money bin right now. But hey, thanks everybody for joining us. Yeah, I
Scrooge
know that's
McDuck out here.
right. That's not gonna happen.
For,
But thanks everybody for joining us and have a
yes,
great
yes.
week.